pop on that recording button. Hey, hi, hello, welcome back. Alex entering Codex. I am Alex. This is Stardew Valley. This is not a long stream. This is an hour-long stream, and then I'm getting the hell out of here, starting to get ready for work. But I'm not getting home till like midnight tonight, and I've been a sleepy boy lately. So, why the hell does it look like nighttime in here all the time? Yeah, whatever. Oh, I do not at all remember what the hell we were doing. I mean, growing stuff, running a farm, etc., etc. Yeah, that part I remember. Roughly what I've been doing is trying to collect more material so that I can improve the rest of my tools, right? Yeah, that is approximately what I've been doing. Oh, why not keep that up then? Today's a bad luck day, we can just go collect geodes until it's a good luck day. Ooh, I am pretty out of it. I don't, The last few nights when I've been sleeping, I'm sure I've been dreaming, but I can't remember anything when I wake up. Very unusual. Normally I have pretty excellent dream recall, and lucid dreaming is pretty easy for me. I think. No. Part of what I dreamed last night was that I was back in college. Yeah, I remember that. That's always unpleasant. At least I don't have high school dreams anymore. There's that. But really, my college dreams come down to like, Alex, you haven't attended class at all this week. Is everything okay? And I'm like, no. That's it. That's the dream. Over and over. It's just like me not going to class and failing my classes over and over and over and over. Yeah. I think I've been thinking about school a lot more in the last few months because I have vague aspirations to going back and either wrapping up my history degree, because I dropped out like the semester before I got my degree for mental health reasons, and it's more of a point of pride at this point going back and getting my history undergrad. But at the same time, like, I don't really know what having my undergrad in history would even do for me. I have the equivalent education, and so fucking many entry-level positions require an undergraduate degree, as is, and the humanities are kind of oversaturated. You know, in a financial crisis, the museums don't get more funding. You don't really open up more museums, so given the economic climate of the United States of the last decade or so, it makes sense that sociology, anthropology, history, you know, the humanities are suffering a bit. And the arts, I suppose. That's also true. Though, with, in many ways, graphic designers are in higher demand than ever, but also being paid worse than ever, because their talents are being taken for granted as well. When I went to school, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to study. You know, I have pretty wide interests, as I feel most people do. Like, I wanted to study about different kinds of sciences, I wanted to study different types of literature, cultures, histories, etc., etc., etc. And really, it seemed to me, well, the best way to study as much as possible is to go with something as vague as possible. I mean, anthropology is literally the study of humanity. It covers just about everything. and everything is history, so that's also quite vague. When I was thinking about going to school back when I was 16, 17, what I really aspired to wasn't a mastery of a particular trade or particular field. What I wanted was a more robust literacy all around. I wanted to know more about various sciences, various types of mathematics. I wanted to better understand physics. I wanted to know histories and stories and systems of government and systems of economics and business, and just I wanted to learn more in general. And generally, I think that's a good pursuit. What I wanted more than anything else was to be in a community surrounded by passionate, like-minded individuals who wanted to learn more, who wanted to engage with the wider world around them, who wanted to try to take what they were learning and, in some small way or another, try to make the world a better place, or a different place. Right? And that's what I wanted out of college. Unfortunately, as many postgrads are well aware, or hell, many first-year students are well aware, that's not really what college is. College is where you go to get a diploma that reassures future employers that you're not completely inept. That's more or less it. Our undergrad system doesn't really require excellence in any degree anymore. And in fact, I'm willing to bet that it never did. It's pretty elitist saying excellence, so I wanna roll that back a little bit. I don't feel that any institution of education should exclude people, but rather encourage every individual in the institution to improve and learn in as many ways as possible, to become as robustly well-rounded and sharpened as possible. To that extent, I feel like most courses should be less generic? Like, God, the amount that I learned from the history classes I took 6 years of college, I learned very little from. Very little from. And, you know, it being your senior year, taking the highest level of history courses and just being like, yep, I know this, yep, I know this, yep, I know this. And people in your class still being like, I don't understand what the French Revolution is, and like random high school level knowledge. It was, I was really disappointed by the institutions, by my peers, by the commodification and industrialization of education generally. Now, when I went to school in Arizona, at Prescott College, or Prescott College, I was actually exposed to some pretty good learning. The history courses weren't amazing, as they didn't really have too robust of a history department, but the communication skills that were taught there were very effective, very well considered. The critique and analysis, critical thinking that were core to so many classes that I deeply enjoyed there were incredibly valuable. I had one particular professor, the last name Hammer, instructor, I think they were called instructors, they're professors, potato, and more experienced, more well-informed people who could share their knowledge and expertise with you. It doesn't really matter what the title is, right? Who was very, very instrumental in God, I'm forgetting a word here. And making it clear and intuitive to me just how important the intention of a piece of media is, and how or anything else. A critical analysis from a materialist lens, or from a lens taking into consideration the production, manufacture, and human element of anything, whether that be a material good, an idea, a philosophy, a piece of art, a media. And in many ways I was a challenging student, I think. I engaged with the material, maybe not the coursework, but the material I was happy to engage with intellectually, conceptually, critically. And my methodology of engaging with new ideas is very discussive, is very concussive, is very hit the two ideas together until they start cracking. And then I feel like you can have a good conversation, and then you can have a good dialogue and insightful analysis. But it can be quite off-putting and quite abrasive if that's not the agreed-upon means by which you're discussing a topic with other people. Still today, when I receive unsolicited feedback, that I do engage with it very quickly. Very, like, I'm a glutton for feedback. I love hearing, like, hey, maybe you could do this differently, or this better, or have you thought about this? But I want me to say no to suggestions to be a valid and acceptable response. Like, hey Alex, have you ever tried, or would you be interested in trying surfboarding? Or surfing. Surfboarding. God, how old am I? Surfing. Nah. And I want that no to be okay. But in so many institutions, whether they be educational or professional institutions, saying no to suggested or mandated change by someone in a position of authority or a position of seniority is seen as being undermining, or etc., etc., etc. Yeah. I wanted going to college to make me a better person, and I think that it did. But not because of what I was supposed to be learning, and not because of what the institution was designed to do, but because of the people and ideas I was exposed to, because of the people I learned alongside of, because of personal experiences that I had outside of the classroom. Really, going to Prescott College, it didn't make me a smarter person. It made me a better academic, it made me a better critic, it made me a better communicator, and in many ways a more thoughtful human being. Going to Elmira made me very aware of how most institutions do not teach critical thinking, do not teach analytical skills, do not teach mindfulness or thoughtfulness or consideration, but still rely on rote memorization as the basis of education and mastery, or consideration of mastery. Going from a very progressive, forward-thinking school, an institution, to one that was very rooted in ineffective, ineffectual, unbending, and uncomfortable tradition, is a very unpleasant experience. One that certainly influenced my decision to leave school for the sake of mental health rather than continue my education there. I wasn't learning. The people around me were barely learning. I wasn't feeling challenged or driven, motivated by my peers, nor the institution. I enjoyed the faculty. I really enjoyed the faculty. But not the classes so much. Just because some classes, yeah, but most classes, no. Like, what I really wanted was to be able to have conversations with the professors, and maybe like 1 or 2 people out of the room, but because most classes, and this has been a frustration of mine all throughout my educative experience being a child and older, so often when you're teaching a group of folks, you have to aim your course towards the lowest knowledge set or lowest skill set in the room. That someone with less experience or less knowledge or less of a capacity to learn, they hold everyone back. And I don't mean to say that, like, I'm very uncomfortable saying that, because I'm uncomfortable with the implications of that. But I do sort of believe that to be true, and that's disquieting. For example, I recall one person in a course I took in Elmira. It was a course on early modern history in East Asia. One dude just kept asking, like, where he would refer to Okinawa and Ryukyu. He would refer to Ryukyu as Okinawa, even though Okinawa was a name given to... They're not the same thing. And the dude's... I don't know, something about... I can't clearly remember, but... I feel like you need to be able to find all the countries on a map and all major geographical regions on a map before you should be able to take a class about that area. Like, you should be required to take a geography class or course before you should take a history of this region course. I don't feel like that's such an outlandish suggestion. Like, hey, where's Vietnam? Alright, you can't find it on a map? Cool. So instead of taking this class on the history of Southeast Asia, maybe go take a geography course and get back to us next semester. Okay, academic elitism and intellectual elitism lend themselves in many ways to vile, negative, toxic institutions, interpersonal relationships, power structures, etc., etc., etc. But having a certain level of... a certain ground level, right? A certain knowledge base that's required feels like it shouldn't be such an uncomfortable thing to broach and approach in an institution of higher learning. But because ultimately many schools, even if they are non-profits, need to generate enough money to stay in business, stay open, those standards might wane a little bit, or might be a little flexible. I certainly don't consider myself to be among some intellectual elite, and well, shit, alright. I find the idea of societies like Mensa to be abrasive and counterproductive and disgustingly self-indulgent. Unproductively self-indulgent even? Oh, hell yeah. And yeah, but I feel like I want to be surrounded by people who know their shit. I want to be taking classes about history with people who are excited about history. I don't want to be taking courses on anthropology with people who are excited about different cultures and different peoples and different ways of life and aren't approaching it from a Western gaze and a Western lens and being judgmental and immature when exposed to ideas or practices that are alien or unfamiliar. If I'm taking a course in foreign language, I want to be taking that course with people who are genuinely interested in learning that foreign language, rather than people who already speak that foreign language and are interested in getting an easy credit. The accreditation system, or the credit system, the commodification of education, the value, the financial and economic value, not even to speak on social value, of a college education has, in my mind, a deleterious effect on the quality of education you can get, or are regularly exposed to, maybe. And I recognize none of this is earth-shattering, none of this is really insightful or new, it's very frustrating. Being like, hell yeah, I want to learn more about the world, I want to be around people who are excited about learning, I want to be around people who are driven, motivated, passionate, and instead being around people who are like, I'm just here because I have to, or my parents are paying for this because they said I have to go, or this is my parents' alma mater, so I'm gonna be here, or my parents say I can't study art, I have to get a business degree, or whatever else. That ain't my shit. That's not what I'm here for. Miss me with that garbage. I want people who will challenge me intellectually, philosophically, ethically, morally, in a way that helps make me a better person. And unfortunately, a lot of my education didn't do that for me. So when I've given thought to going back to school, I'm often coming to terms and grappling with the fear or anxiety around, well, what if it happens again? You know, what if I were to go... Right, I don't. That's or. What if I go back and know better? Now that's very damning. That's very defeating. So because of my experience, I wasn't getting these... I wasn't getting fulfilled in my needs or desires, maybe, met. I got very depressed when I was going to school in New York, very depressed in Elmira. I was surrounded by people who did not give a fuck about their education, they were there for a degree, and barely at that. I wasn't surrounded by people who were very excited about their fields. I felt like I was just surrounded by people doing the bare minimum or just going through the steps to get a grade, to get a degree, to get a job because they felt like they had to. That was not what I had signed up for. Now I realized that it's an outlier to be going to school and not wanting that material result. That crushed me. And New York winters, if you've never been through one, not a good place for someone to be suffering from depression. not a good place at all. Now there were mental health services available at the school, but they were a joke. They were really just a joke, like, you should feel better, or just like, don't be so hard on yourself, kind of bullshit, fluffy, and ineffective, unhelpful. Like, I was far from the only talented, exceptional student who was still having trouble engaging with the institution that we were a part of there. And God, the number of people I saw failed by that school's mental health care or actual health care was abysmal. Just truly disturbing. How many people I was going to school with who were suffering from very real mental illnesses that were going largely ignored by the faculty, staff, and fellow students in the body. It was such a negative and toxic atmosphere if you were anything except boring. Like, if you were actually there to get something emotionally and intellectually and deeply fulfilling out of it, I felt like you didn't get that. I know it's poor form to be just taking jabs at your alma mater, regardless of if you felt like it was a positive experience or not. Generally, speaking publicly negatively about anything is seen as not kosher, given how important networking and social networking are in the modern era. But like, I was let down, and wasn't helped by this institution. My grades were slipping, and instead of questioning if I was okay or what was going on by like a mental health professional or a counselor, I had a student meet with me and be like, yo, so like your grades aren't so good, so you're on academic probation. And you know what that means? I'm like, yeah. So like, we're gonna meet together and go over your work and make sure you're doing well. I'm like, no, we're not. You can say it's mandated, but fuck you. I'm not going to this unless you're here to actually engage with me on what's wrong and actually give a shit about what's wrong. I'm not here to be tutored or have my hand held. My courses are not hard. I have been doing course level material above and beyond this for years. I'm not learning, I'm not challenged, I'm not surrounded by peers who help me and make me a better person or a more well-rounded person. I'm surrounded by people who make me sad. That... Yeah, God, just the number of, you know, good students that I knew that cheated and like really weren't that smart was pretty crazy. Like, I had so many people ask me to write papers for them or do work for them. Like, dog, how can you not write this basic, like, 4-page essay? Do you really think that's hard? You're not gonna survive in the world if writing a fucking 4-page essay is too hard. Just research the thing. Spend an afternoon or a night researching the thing. Write the paper overnight. And turn it in the next day. You won't get an A, but who gives a shit? You don't have to pay or bribe or try to convince other people to do your work for you when it's really that easy. Yeah. As much complaining as I do, I did have one professor in particular who taught some history courses, but mostly like art history or museum studies, a curating course, taught classes about the history of environmentalism and public parks and things like that in the United States, courses like that. Yeah, he noticed that like I wasn't doing so hot, and we had a meeting. He's like, "Hey man, you doing okay?" I'm like, "No, like I'm pretty depressed," and like I was pretty frank about it. Like, yeah, I've had periods of my life like that. Like, I'm sorry that you're going through that. Let me know if I can help at all. I'm like, that's what I needed from the institution. It meant a lot for this person who I enjoyed being around, who I was learning from, and really enjoyed their company, and felt like this is the kind of person who I want to be going to school with and learning from. But the institution and just being like, do your work, scrub. Just fill in the blanks and do this unfulfilling stuff that you're not learning from. One of the breaking points was I had to take a physical education course. That was just me going to the school fucking gym and working out. Or at least saying that I worked out every day. That's it. That's all I had to do. Why am I paying you money for that? Fuck you. I think a New York state mandated thing for schools or something, but that was some horseshit. Like, the first course I took at my other school was a 3-week backpacking course. Now, I'm not in Olympian shape, but I used to rock climb every day before I came to this podunk New York town. You really think it's necessary for me to have to do this? And, like, fuck, even if I were in horrific shape, what business is that of the school? And that's not even to say, like, what kind of obstacles does that create for people who aren't traditionally able-bodied? Or are comfortable working out around other people, which I'm not really. Like, that's ableist as fuck and creates so many obstacles. Unnecessary and kinda regressive obstacles. I know it was probably a program introduced with the intention of tackling the obesity epidemic. But you know what would actually tackle the obesity epidemic, Elmira College? If you had food services that provided actual healthy meals instead of food services that really mirror the United States broadly. Like, oh yeah, you can have healthy food, but it's more expensive than the shitty food. Ah, okay. And like, our meal plans are really wide open and don't locally source anything and don't partner with local farmers or community like no community agriculture focus, no local focus with food or anything else. It's just like hiring a third-party company to run your food services for you, and like the food quality was gas station level. Like, I'm not saying that to be mean to the staff who work there. Like, they've worked hard, but just give me the ability to make my own food, or give me something that doesn't make me feel like it's making me develop diabetes. I was spoiled, very spoiled by Prescott College. When I was going there, had a cafe, so it wasn't even like it wasn't even designed for the entire student body or even a significant percentage of the student body to eat there regularly. I don't think they had the throughput to support that. But the quality of the food there was exceptional. It was absolutely exceptional. It was a treat to go there. And comparing that to my later experiences with the culinary offerings of higher education institutions, worlds apart. Worlds apart. I don't want to be served like a 4-course meal. I just want to be able to eat something that I know was ethically sourced and the people who grew the product or worked to refine the product were paid enough, were made in humane conditions with livable wages, and that the foodstuffs were coming from a somewhat local area, at least in the geographic region, so that I could be assured that my food wasn't significantly contributing to global warming or climate change or pollution or just whatever else. Ethical food is not such a strange thing to want. Maybe it is. Maybe it is. Maybe that's a high standard. I know many people will be like, well, back when I was in school, we just had garbage, and we ate the garbage. question to you is, don't you wish you didn't have to eat garbage? Don't you wish you could just make your own food? Or have access to healthy, affordable foods? Or courses that taught you how to make food on a budget? Or how to do stuff like that? I don't mean a fucking home economics class. I mean just like a fun little cooking course. Like a fucking cooking club, even, paid for by the school. Or subsidized by the school. The amount of people I saw just eat pizza every fucking day, every single day, and I was among them, was significant. For fuck's sake, I went to school with someone who had ketchup with every meal. In their defense, it was for dietary reasons, but like, the health of the students was not a concern of that school. We were forced to live on site. We were forced to participate in all kinds of stupid school rituals, school songs and school holidays, and dumbass cult-like practices. But no one checked in on our physical and mental well-being. No one actively provided services to see to the mental or physical well-being or emotional well-being of the students. Elmira College does not give a shit, or at least did not give a shit, about the students who went there. Obviously, they would provide lip service as to how much they cared and how important student health and are to them, but in effect, I know the vast majority of people I talked to felt utterly abandoned by that institution. It's been 40 minutes of me complaining about that, so that's why I still have nightmares about going back to school. Mostly it's like me being at school and not learning anything and not going to class because what's the point? I'm not learning anything. And then like people being, Alex, you really need to go to class. Wow, you're such a bad student, kind of thing. And it's like, no, I mean, even if I were a good student, I wouldn't be learning anything here, because this is a piece of shit school that isn't worth my time, and I wanted something different, and this isn't different, and I'm just disappointed and disillusioned, and yeah. Yeah, it's odd. Schools are hyper competitive for the most part, who they allow in, who they don't allow in. And maybe that's the crux. Maybe I just haven't gone to a school that is genuinely aimed at helping people become better educated, more well-rounded human beings. Maybe I have just not had the bureaucratic credentials to get me into one of the institutions that would actually provide what I'm wanting and what I feel like I was needing. Maybe because I dropped out of high school and finished early by homeschooling myself, i.e. just getting my GED, and maybe because I didn't pursue extracurriculars, yada yada yada. It means I didn't get into a good school, but I have a suspicion that good schools are exactly the same fucking way. Because, I mean, ultimately, what so many people are going to school for is a credential, is to say, yes, I went to blank college, which is supposed to reassure you that I am a certain kind of person, and because I'm the certain kind of person, you should pay me more than you pay others, or that means I'm qualified to do this thing. There are so many people who graduated from the schools I went to that I would not trust with any sort of authoritative position in any capacity, or managerial position, or I wouldn't trust them with really any sort of responsibility at all. Yeah. And there's people who have never pursued higher education, either through lack of financial access, geographic restrictions, or other restrictions, political even, that would make brilliant leaders, or would be very capable of handling a great deal of responsibility. And yet, it's folks who just have the right paperwork who are heeded to and lended credence to so often. Which, of course, you know, it makes sense. If you have two people that you've never met before in an interview, or you're interviewing them separately, let's say, and they're identical, except one has paperwork saying they went to this school, and the other doesn't, you probably go with the one who went to the school, right? Because you're trying to make a estimate of what the person's potential is based off of very superficial information. And even if this credential that they're offering up isn't really that substantial, or even if you don't really know if what exactly they were like in their courses or anything else, you know that they have it and the other person doesn't. So I get it. I just really don't like it. I don't like it from a hiring perspective. I don't like it from a hiree perspective. I wish there were better ways for would-be employers to have access to more well-rounded information and insights regarding their would-be employees, or would-be partners, or would-be students, if we're even extrapolating this to the point of talking about schools. I wish there were better ways to gauge individual capability, individual reliability, individual trustworthiness, etc., etc., charisma even, of potential candidates, than a resume, than a cover letter, than, you know, a whole list of citations saying that, yeah, sure, they're good. You know, ultimately, there probably isn't. There probably isn't. Is all I'm thinking of is, like, what if you made a new test? And then that's just more bureaucracy. Ultimately, the foundation is you kind of just have to put faith in something and operate under this understanding that you're all just putting faith in it, which can be uncomfortable. Okay, that's 55 to 64. That's better than what I'm using, yeah? Yeah, that's better than what I'm using. Give me that lava katana. Haven't killed enough of anything yet, but we're getting there. I don't feel like an exception should be made for me. I just would like it if an exception were made for everyone? If we could use more well-rounded analytics, tests, tools to gauge someone's ability, both mental and emotional, to perform a task and socialize those and get other socials, rather than just relying on a few pretty flimsy. Really, it's the whole idea of, you know, straw that breaks the camel's back, or, you know, the fascista, you know, an idea of a bundle of sticks being tougher than an individual stick. And I know it's probably dangerous to ever say the fundamental idea of fascism is you know, noteworthy, but I would rather there be a bunch of shitty tests, a bunch of degrees and tools used to analyze and perceive the ability or inability of potential hirees than just a few. I would rather there be a program or a artificial intelligence or a series of tests that you undergo, and you take all these qualifications, you grind them down, and then you plop out a result at the end. And I don't mean just like a few things, I mean like fucking personality tests. Fuck it, throw it in there, why not? Do they have this degree? Do they not have that degree? If they had that degree, what classes did they take that degree with? Who did they study under? What was their GPA? How were they regarded by their peers? How many friends do they have on this social media page? How many times have they posted something sexist or racist? How many times have they posted incriminating photos of themselves? You know, like, I want a very all-encompassing analysis. And in a system like that, needless to say, I might not be a very good candidate. Or the best candidate. You know, my wanting is not a system that would benefit me more than it would benefit others. I want a system that would just benefit humans in being better represented as the multi-dimensional, complex creatures that we are, rather than simplistic, uninteresting series of statistics. I want those statistics to be so overwhelming in number that they help to... It's a resolution thing, right? You have like 5 pixels. You can't do much with that. You have 500 pixels, you can start doing something with that. You got 5,000. Even better, you have 50,000. Even better, you have millions, billions. Then you can start creating an image of someone that looks like someone. I want more data points, basically. I'm a good goddamn academic. I want good data points. I want more data to be accessible by employers and employees and schools and students to help illustrate the kind of people that they are in a really well-rounded way. But ultimately, that's circular, right? It leads us back to the beginning. It leads us back to the original problem. With all of these well-rounded, complicated human beings, how do we, on an industrial scale, make a choice between one or the other? And there's so many factors to consider. Which factors are more important or less important? Ultimately, I suppose it leads back to the same place, where the problem is that we're trying to compare and contrast people industrially rather than individually. That's pretty heartbreaking. It's a lack of time, it's a lack of resources, I understand that perfectly well. But I wholeheartedly believe everyone could be just phenomenal at certain things if given the opportunity. It's not just given the opportunity, it's given the time, the opportunity, the tutoring, the resources, the support, emotional, financial, to pursue the things that could make them excellent, or the ways in which they are excellent. But I don't know if I live in a country that's actually interested in doing that. I don't know that I live in a society that's really built to reinforce that, to support that, to facilitate that. I feel like I'm not. And I'm not just saying that from a woe is me, nihilist perspective. It's functionally, I'm pretty sure, I'm fairly convinced that the society I live in has an education model that's meant to institutionalize people. That's meant to make people into good workers. first and foremost. At the end of the day, so often that's what people are given value for. Their ability to be profitable. Their ability to be marketable. As they are. Within the tight constraints of existing infrastructure and industry. Huh. That's cool. Auto grabber. I like that. Oh no. Range up. Oh right. This isn't running on. This isn't running on Steam because it's modded. It's a different exe. No corn, huh? Yeah. So I should get ready for that. Possibly by getting some diamonds, or we'll just pass up today and leave that on future Alex. Probably leave a note or something for myself, but it's fine. So okay, let's try to end this on a more positive spin, not just me bemoaning the state of higher education in the United States being a reproductive tool for industry in a very ineffective, stagnating type way. People are very well educated. Even casually. They're better educated than they were 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Now, it's really easy for people to get reinforced in beliefs now. There have been studies to show that sites like Twitter and, well, Twitter a little less. Twitter, you get exposed to people who are violently opposed to your beliefs and your worldview. But Facebook in particular is constructed in a way that is very bubbly. You tend to be surrounded by and shown media that reinforce or promote views you already hold, which can be very dangerous because it can reinforce it to the point where you believe it to be common sense, and anyone who doesn't believe or adhere to your beliefs or worldview are just so alien and inconceivably different that you don't have the know-how or capacity or will to engage with them in a way to find common ground, to gain mutual understanding, etc., etc. That aside, I said I was trying to be positive about this. You know, there's just always two sides to every coin. It's a matter of perspective and a matter of context if something is positive or negative. And trying to cover something as entirely positive or entirely negative is juvenile and short-sighted and just a poor representation of the whole. Chiaroscuro, right? The interplay of light and shadow to create dynamic image. That's what the world is. Chiaroscuro. That said, Wikipedia is a fucking godsend. Sites like Wikipedia, sites like Snopes are doing a phenomenal job at educating people and giving people access to knowledge that in centuries past would be only available to the very best educated intellectual elite of a society, or very entrenched librarians, maybe. We currently have standards of living in most of the Western world, and most of the world. In much of the world. I don't want to say much of the world, but, you know, an increasing percentage of the world live to a standard of living that used to be, not even a century ago, a quality that only royalty could expect. Now, in the United States, you have the notable exception of healthcare. We have terrible healthcare practices. Just terrible healthcare practices. Our insurance industry is very inhumane and dehumanizing and just horrific, and our refusal to have universal healthcare is yeah, very regressive, to say nothing else. But food quality, education about nutrition, education about just hygiene, reproduction, are very easy things to take for granted that increasingly, on a global scale, are at a level hitherto unknown or unseen on such a scale in the entirety of history. Which is very, very reassuring. Hopefully we can use less antibiotics and avoid our impending doom there with better education. But, you know, even if some people deny that climate change is real, even if some people believe that other folks shouldn't get married just because of who they fall in love with, even if we live in a society that is socially disgusting, I eat better than Queen Elizabeth did in the 1930s. She ate pretty well, but like, even if I'm the one preparing my meals, I have a better idea of the true nutritional requirements than the people preparing hers did back then. That was 90 years ago. Well, not even 90 years ago. That's fucking crazy. Watching documentaries and reading about the 1920s and 1930s and just being like, oh, we got a newfangled telephone. I'm like, really? That's the most exciting thing? And like, your cars are horrible and everyone's smoking and you're all gonna die young of cancer? Like, Jesus Christ. This is the golden age? This is what we call the American golden age or the greatest generation? Like, fuck that. It's horrible. I wouldn't want to live back in the 50s. To want to live in the past, you either need to be very misinformed about what the past entailed, or have some other criteria. I had a professor, history professor, in my college in New York. When a student made the mistake in her class making a reference to, quote, the good old days, she said, there are no good old days. There have never been any good old days. Everything has always been terrible forever. And I have never agreed with anyone more than I did in that moment. Yes, that is the summation of studying history. You're not learning about bygone golden eras of mankind where everything was better and they were so much more enlightened than we are now. No, that is a regressive way to think about the past that was very popular in the 20th century, but is something we need to very much dissuade ourselves from. The past was not better. It was also not necessarily worse. It was just the past. It had problems, just as we have problems, and it was probably worse to be alive then. Just for technological breakthroughs, sociological changes. Like, needless to say, it was an able-bodied, white, male, cis-het student who was like, the good old days, and talking about the 1800s. Which, you know, if you have any knowledge of American history in the last few centuries, or really American history broadly, you can realize how a white guy calling the 1800s the good old days could spark off a few problems. Oh yes, back before women could vote and minorities were considered people. Yes, those were the good old days? You gotta watch that phrasing. There were nothing good. Those were not good days. Hell, these are not good days, but they are better than they were. In some ways. In some ways not. Like I said, chiaroscuro. Yes and no. As as far as I'm concerned, the more that you grow to better understand something, the more that you'll grow to better appreciate something. If you have a favorite historical period, the worst thing you can do is not study it more. If you don't study it more, it'll stay in your mind as this golden little piece of history that you're infatuated with or in love with, and it'll stay as magical as ever. But if you study it, that magic falls apart. That magic will crumble through your fingers, and you'll be forced to take a look at the reality of the time period. At the reality of the people who lived in that time period, the way that it affected people's lives, the material and economic and social conditions of that time, and that is the best thing you can do if you love something, is learn about it more. Not so you can realize how horrible it is. Yeah, so you can realize how horrible it is, because damn near everything's terrible on some level, but so you can actually know what it is, rather than being in love with the idea of something. So much better to know what the thing actually is. Now, ironically, my favorite Bible verse, back from when I was Christian, was, God, I can't remember what it is, what the book of the verses, but it's, "He who increases in knowledge increases in suffering." Kind of a damning thing. The message was to encourage the reader not to pursue a love of learning, but to pursue a love of piety, I suppose? That the pursuit of truth and knowledge, although fulfilling in some ways, would ultimately be a depressing and saddening experience. It would lead to more suffering. And in some ways, the author, or authors, depending on your interpretation, are absolutely correct. But in my mind, that's the cost of knowing the world. If we were to take this from a Christian ontological, theological perspective, if knowledge increases suffering, your God must be in constant pain, being all, omnipotent. And to be more godlike, to be more Christian, which is the name of your faith, to be more like the deity that you revere, the pursuit of knowledge, the pursuit of omnipotence, of compassionate, loving omnipotence, should be a pretty high goal, as should, eliminating suffering in the world and not putting yourself on a pedestal above other people and engaging in odd self-sacrifice, needless self-sacrifice for the benefit of your humanity, etc., etc. It's odd to have knowledge, or the pursuit of knowledge, condemned as being dangerous. It is dangerous, absolutely, but there's few pursuits more admirable. Really, the most admirable pursuit beyond that is to try to eliminate suffering. Not, a la Thanos, I'm thinking more like Buddha, but whatever rocks your boat, I suppose. Yeah. Well, it's been an hour. I'm gonna get off of here. Go get ready for work and carry this, just socially, structurally dissatisfied energy I am feeling today forward. This is gonna make me real fun tonight, I know. Thanks for hanging out. More Stardew Valley will presumably be up tomorrow. If you're watching on Twitch, I may be streaming around 11 or midnight tonight. Maybe not. I start at noon tomorrow, and I get off around midnight. I'm getting off of work anyway, around midnight tonight, so I have a pretty quick turnaround. I will possibly be back Sunday night, but Cora gets back from, I almost said California, Canada then, and I'll probably be spending time with her. If you're watching on YouTube, none of this matters. If you're watching on YouTube, this will continue tomorrow, presumably, or something else will be up tomorrow. Just wait until tomorrow, you'll see. In the meantime, make sure to comment, share, like, subscribe, Twitter. Which for YouTube, Alexandrian Codex, all the things. Till then, toodaloo. Take care of yourself. Bye-bye.